have the opening prayer, pledges of allegiance, and the flag of the United States and of Texas by Councilman Brown.
Good evening, all. Please bow your head in prayer. Tonight I want to remind us all that we need to be living in a state of gratitude. Tonight we need to be giving thanks that with all the first world problems that we face on a daily basis, that we're still in the United States of America. With all the challenges that we still have within our borders, that we've landed in the great state of Texas. And on top of that, that we're blessed to live in the city of Schertz. We have our issues, we have our challenges, but again, God, thank you for everything that you've given us and for where we are today. Help us stay on this path and help the council and leadership work together to find viable solutions for the challenges that we do encounter. In God's name we pray, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In honor of the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, we're going to skip past the presentation and go into the employee recognition.
Can the police department come forward?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, Dr. Brown. It's my privilege to introduce our newest patrol officer. He's a San Antonio native and a graduate from John Jay High School. After high school, he joined the United States Marine Corps, and he served 2 combat tours in Afghanistan. He comes to us with a patrol experience, both from the Converse and Bulverde police departments. He's a proud father of 3, and in his spare time enjoys exercising and spending time with his family. I'd like to introduce Officer Aldo Laura.
Very nice to meet all of you. I'd like to thank the city and everybody for this opportunity. On behalf of me and my family, I look forward to working with all of you. The city has been very welcoming, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, Mr. Brown. I'd like to introduce you to our 2 newest street employers, street worker ones. Their job consists of everything: concrete work, street maintenance, nice hot work. First, I want to introduce Cliff Cantula. Cliff was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and lived there for 16 years. From there, he moved to Austin to go to UT. He studied microbiology for 4 years. After that, he lived in the Schertz for 10 years and now currently lives in Nebraska. He lives here with his daughter, Elsa. He loves to go bicycle racing, motorcycle riding, and spending time with his family.
You can say something if you like, or don't. Okay.
Next, we have Glenn Canal. Same thing with streets. He's learning everything he can learn. There's a lot to learn. Glenn was born in Amarillo, Texas. He lived there for 8 years, then moved to Cibolo. He graduated from Allison Steel, and he went to work for Trapper Creek Job Corps and did everything from fighting forest fires to pouring concrete. He completed training in San Marcos and then finally made it to the city of Schertz. Glenn and his girlfriend, Brenna, has been living in Cibolo, currently. He likes to go camping, and in his survival nut, he enjoys the great outdoors. Glenn?
You can say something? No? Okay. Welcome to the city. Announcements. Mr. James?
Thank you. Just to let everybody know, next Monday, June 10th, the library is going to be opening late. They're going to open at noon. As council may know, we are replacing our phone system at the city, and all of the library staff will be going through training that morning. So they're going to push back opening until noon on Monday, June 10th. We will have our next council meeting a week from now, Tuesday, June 11th, starting at 6 p.m. We have a large crowd here tonight, so we could use your help on this one. There's a blood drive going on here on Wednesday, June 12th. That's from 8 a.m. to noon in the community center parking lot, the building right next door. Again, if you'd like to schedule an appointment, you can call the city number, extension 1410, the EMS department, but we certainly would appreciate everybody coming out and donating blood who can. And then for council, the next Northeast Partnership meeting will be Thursday, June 13th at 11:30, and that's over at Olympia Hills.
Thank you. Mr. Brown? I have nothing, so we will do hearing of the residents. And when you come up, state your name and your address, please. Bob Weir, did I say that right or wrong? Okay. Maggie Titterton.
Good evening, Council. I just wanted to cover a couple of things. I'm sure you're aware by now, but I will be losing my vice president on the 20th of this month. Robin is moving and going to the great state of Tennessee. Not quite as great as Texas, but I guess it'll be all right. He's going to be closer to grandkids and everything, and so we will be wishing him well, but the 20th will be his last day, and we welcomed in Shelby Griffin, who is not taking his place as vice president, but is taking over special events. So things like our Skylight Balloon Fest, our Health and Wholeness, things like that will be, she'll be the main contact. Speaking of Skylight, it's not too early to mark your calendars. October 25th through the 27th at River City Community Church is going to be our third annual Hot Air Balloon Festival. We are still accepting vendors for this, and the vendor booths start as low as $100, and this is for the entire weekend. So if you are a crafter, if you have some products to sell, we are sold out on our food trucks, food booths, so we are not accepting any more of those. But if you are a vendor and you are interested, we also have electricity that's going to be provided. Please contact me at the chamber. Give us a call at 619-1950. And last but not least, today a really great and special event happened. Brigadier General Lenderman called about 7 of our chambers of commerce from the area together. This hasn't happened before, a multi-chamber summit, if you will, to talk about the mission that's going on, the things that they are looking at the military at Fort Sam as well as Lackland and Randolph, and ways that we could come together as a business community to not only just partner and support the military, but also what were our needs as businesses that they could come and partner with us, such as volunteers for city events or Chamber of Commerce events. So if you all have any kind of dialogue that you want to talk about that or talk to me at length a little bit more about what that looked like, please contact me. But they really want to be more of a part of our community, whether it's volunteering at Schertz Fest or at the 4th of July to just helping out in any sort of way possible. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Edmonds. State your name and address, please.
My name is Bill Edmonds. I reside at 4909 Crestwood Drive. I am the president of the Northcliffe HOA. What I want to address shortly, each of you should have gotten, the city secretary gave you the community environmental defense services for the preservation of golf courses. You should each have one of those. I just want to address a few things on the golf course because that will be talked about later. Dave Roberts did all he could to save the golf course. The Taiwanese owner took all the money and left him $10,000 to keep the course going. For 2 years he did. He put his heart, soul, and even his own money into it to keep that golf course alive. I think it's time for the residents and the city council to step up and for us to do our part now. He's done his the best he could. There's a couple things in that brochure that probably the flyer I want to make the other people aware of.
First of all, property values are going to fall. They're going to fall drastically. Surveys across the United States have said that residents near or on a golf course can lose up to 40% of their value if that golf course closes. That's a lot of money because you got some expensive homes around that golf course over there. The second thing is that there will be a loss of aquatic resources. The building of houses and commercial properties will cause a major problem. Each rooftop, parking lot, asphalt, commercial building, and all will cause damage to the aquatic center or aquatic underground as it continues on out of here. Up to 600 feet of downstream waterways can be damaged. And that, the third thing I want to say is golf courses are decreasing nationwide. Numbers have gone down quite a bit nationwide. However, that is actually a possible positive. Fewer golf courses means the ones that are staying available, that are staying alive, are going to be used more because you can't go to the one you used to if it closed down. So it gives you a better chance of opportunity to keep it open because other ones are declining, especially in this area. We don't have that many golf courses up here. So it would be feasible for us to actually have the city make some money off of this because you make money off of whatever they sell over there. And last of all, we have to support this golf course because it's a green space. It's a huge green space. And although the city of Schertz has a lot of green space down south of here, up on this north end we don't. And we can't keep losing green space. We have to have it available for the citizens. They say 100 acres for every 10,000 people. That's 150 acres up there. That comes in very good for helping out the residents on the north end. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry Reeb.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm going to speak loud because half of my neighbors can't hear and the other half are deaf. But
Can I get you to state your name and
Larry Reeb,
address for the secretary?
I live at 3425 Charleston, and I'm the voice for 7 other property owners that all met as a result of last council's meeting. I attended the last meeting, and I'd like to acknowledge all the speakers from last time and the people here that applauded the opinions of those speakers last time. It's unmistakably clear that the vast majority of the people then and probably now had 2 similar concerns. One, the result of the golf course closing, the specter of reduced property values is there. And the second point, if the manicured golf course was allowed to go fallow, grow up as the pictures we saw of the course in Houston, that's going to bring all kinds of rats, mice, ticks, snakes, and that's a hazard to the health of anybody living close to it or within 5 miles of it. Now, a lot of homeowners now are mowing well beyond their own property lines. That's a Band-Aid. It's not a fix. The fix is a stable, and I want to emphasize stable, honest, emphasize honest, competent owners and management of the golf course. That's the fix. We believe, the 8 of us that met, that the city fits that bill. You're stable, you're honest, and you're capable. We want to help you. Now, last week, the mayor gave us a reference to a city code, and I want to read it, what he gave us to us. Government Code Title 12, Subchapter A, Chapter 372, Public Improvement District Assessment Act. For the benefit of those here tonight that have not read that spellbinding act, it essentially gives the city power to assess and collect taxes to fund an improvement district. The code is 25 pages of action-packed drama you just don't want to put down. It details what must be done, and it's a lot, but it's doable. Is it worth doing? Maybe. Here's a little information from my personal situation, which is not unique. While living in San Antonio, I joined Northcliffe in the late 70s or early 80s because of the golf course. I bought a lot in the early 90s. I moved here in 99, all because of the golf course. I wasn't the first one to do that. I hope I'm not the last. There were a lot fewer homes then than there are now in this neighborhood. It cost me $300 initiation to join the club, $100 a month dues plus $25 a month food and beverage. I was for a single membership. A family membership was $180 a month dues, and I don't know what their food and beverage was. That paid for the pool, the tennis courts, banquet facilities, bar, and a golf course. The club had over 400 members and had outside tournaments that brought in extra money. The course was nice, but not elaborate. It was an affordable place to play and one that we're proud to invite friends and business associates to join us. As far as I know, the club made money. Many of us believe that can be recreated. It's a nice but not elaborate golf course with proper management should be a source of municipal pride and a moneymaker. Is it worth doing? Of course it is. But funding of public projects is only half the battle. The other half is getting the owner to sell. Without a sale, there is no project. Saturday night, 8 property owners for whom I'm the voice met to discuss the code. We also discussed the tax base, the suspicious business activities of Mr. Chen, and what could we do? The unanimous result was we wanted to help you make the purchase and management of the course happen. We also believe there are hundreds more residents that want the same thing, and we invite them to join us here. There's strength in numbers, but there's actually so much we don't know, the least of which is who actually owns that golf course, who has the authority to sell it, or can the city force a sale for the public good? And I reference the city council minutes of April 21st, 2009, and we know there was activity between the city and the course at that time. And we also know that additional work was done between the city and the course between them. We need your guidance. We request a future meeting with the council and our appropriate department heads where you share with us what needs to be done and what we can do to help you. And in closing, I'd like to say, prior to this situation, I did not really understand and appreciate how much time, effort, and learning the mayor and the city council has to put forth to run this place. Thank you for all that you do.
All right, my apologies for being late. The rain caused some of the drivers in San Antonio not able to navigate the roads, and it took me a little longer to get here from 1604 and 281 than normal. I believe Dave Parker's next on the list.
I'm Dave Parker, and I live at 3325 Sherwin Drive.
Thank you.
More importantly, the 9th tee. They don't hit it in my yard, though, because I didn't choose a house like that. I kind of came in late and had to catch up with some of these guys that have done some very good work, citizens in the area that have done some very good work finding out what's going on. I am a semi-developer, built a few projects, and know that zoning is extremely important. And if there's any power amongst this group to control private property, zoning is the biggest power. And from that power, these people within 200 feet of this golf course, of that property, have a tremendous amount of power as well. My suggestion to you would be that you form a committee and try to find is there a community development block grant available? Is there some other sort of funding? Because without improvements to this golf course, all of the things he said are nice, but they won't work. Because you have two courses. You have Landa Park and you have Olympia Hills that are competing with this golf course. And this golf course is in tremendous disrepair. No fault of the people that were running it. But the owner of this course had a course in Houston. He talked about it. Well, there's no zoning in Houston. Houston is the largest city in the world with no zoning. And he had no power. The council there had no power over that golf course because of that one single fact. Here, I suggest that you take the time, and I know you've already got it on the agenda, and I don't know what the workshop format is, but you take the time and put together and get some of these good citizens on a committee along with your legal staff, because your legal staff is going to be extremely important in this whole situation, and try to find a solution. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Michelle Oden.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I was here last time, and I just have an inquiry, but for the record, 5801 Black Diamond, 14th hole. I just had an inquiry. I know that we did the hearing of the residents before, that we're actually going to talk about the development committee and all of that stuff. Will we be able to ask questions? Because I've read the code. I think I have a general understanding of what it's going to take for the petition. But I don't know if this is just going to be a dissertation of what is expected from us, or is this going to be a question-answer session where we'll be allowed to ask questions so that we can have a better understanding of what is going to be required of us in order to get you what you need?
So since we're just discussing matters of fact and procedure, under normal circumstances, the answer would be no. These are extraordinary circumstances. So unless the council objects, as the chair, I'm just going to allow for there to be questions after the workshop, and we'll take those down, and we will attempt to promulgate answers after the fact. Usually at the end of hearing of residents, we're finished at that point. This evening, I will make available time for anyone that has questions after the presentation to bring those questions to us. I don't know that we'll be able to answer them on the spot, but we will certainly take those down and make sure that we have an opportunity to get back to you.
Thank you.
Again, as long as no one in council objects, and I bet you $1 to a donut they won't. There you go. All right, next up, John Thompson.
John Thompson, 3325 Charleston Lane. I live on the golf course, and it was my wife that was animated last week. Last week. That was really animated, and I won't be that animated, and I want you to know that I'm here to give you all the support that you need. Any committee that you need me to work on, I will do that. We want this golf course to stay open. I'm willing to work. I just need to know what I need to do.
Very fair. Thank you, sir. Michael Dollar. Michael. Evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Carpenter, council members, Dr. Brown. Just a couple of things. First, I want to thank Brenda for the interview committee, the applicants that she gathered during the open house she did, and the magazine article. We had actually more applicants than we had positions, and we had some phenomenal applicants, and looking forward to seeing what kind of contributions they're going to make to our city going forward. And so the other thing I'm here to speak about is about the golf course. Probably going to make myself the most unpopular person in the room this evening, but here we go. After seeing the video from last week's meeting and seeing a number of residents asking the city to consider taking over the golf course, I thought it'd be appropriate to speak as one of those that do not agree with that sentiment. In the past, the city's had several opportunities to consider some form of management up to and including the purchase of the now-defunct golf course in Northcliffe. The city has rightfully declined to do so for a number of reasons, primarily due to the cost. With the most recent study already around 10 years old, cost estimate of $5 to $7 million to purchase and rehab the course is likely a very low number. Last year, this council approved a tax increase that was sold to the citizens that was to address issues related to deferred maintenance. At the time, staff stated that deferred maintenance in the Parks Department alone was approximately $1 million, and we're way behind on implementing our comprehensive street maintenance plan. More recently, Council delayed a couple of drainage improvement projects due to the bids being too high and not having enough funds to do all that we wanted to do this year, in spite of the tax increase. Additionally, our Parks Master Plan makes no mention about adding a golf course to our park system. The top 10 priority capital improvement actions from the Parks Master Plan does not include a golf course. The recreational activities that scored the highest in the citizen surveys include hiking of 89.9%, biking 87.5%, and health and wellness programs at 86%. The golf course doesn't even make that list. So let's talk about golf itself for a moment. From 2006 to 2017, the number of participants playing golf has declined from 29.82 million to 23.83 million, a decline of almost 6 million players. According to the National Golf Foundation, more than 200 courses closed in 2017 and over 800 in the last decade. In a Golf Advisor article dated June 1st, 2018 by Jason Scott Deegan, quote, Richard Singer, the Director of Consulting Services for the National Golf Foundation, who has been studying municipal golf courses for nearly 3 decades, said 2/3 of municipal golf courses lose money every year. The closing of municipal courses is a trend that is something that we could see more of in the coming years, end quote. So without further belaboring the point, I feel that consideration of a possible purchase of the golf course is not in the best interest of the city of Schertz and its citizens, and I believe that the majority of council agrees that this is not a viable option. So moving forward onto the idea of a PID, and looking over the statute that enables this, it certainly is possible to accomplish, and if the residents around the course want to attempt to do so, by all means, go ahead, and I would hope that they would be successful in doing so. The part that I have a concern about is in Section 372.005, Paragraph 5, that states the proposed apportionment of the cost between the PID and the municipality or county as a whole, end quote. For the record, I would be completely and totally opposed to the expenditure of public funds to improve and manage a piece of property which was not owned by the city and would ultimately benefit the property owner at the expense of Schertz residents. In listening to the commentary from last week's meetings, one of the major concerns of the residents was loss in property values. In doing some research, it seems that neighborhoods that see the biggest decline in values around golf courses around the country are those that have mandatory fees and membership associated with the course. Northcliffe does not have that. Comparatively speaking to some other golf courses that I looked at around the country, Northcliffe is significantly older and the programs at a price point lower than the other ones, 200s versus 350 and up. So additionally, the course has been in decline for a number of years, and so I believe that the potential of any potential loss of value already has been pretty much baked into the sales prices in that neighborhood around there. But I certainly agree that there's a potential additional loss of value for those homeowners, especially those that are on the golf course. I don't think anyone can say with any degree of certainty, but let's try to quantify with a back-of-envelope calculations. Looking at Google Earth, it appears that there's about 225 to 250 homes that are actually on the course, which are the ones that would arguably see the largest potential loss in value. So let's assume they lose $25,000 each in value. That's about $6.25 million reduction in taxable value to the city. What does that mean? That's about $32,500 in tax revenue. So let's expand this a little bit further. Let's look at what a loss in aggregate valuation of $25 million for the whole neighborhood looks like. That would be less than $150,000 at our current tax rate. It's not an insignificant amount, but it's not a budget buster either, so we don't need to let fear drive our actions in making this decision as we consider this discussion moving forward. If I was in that neighborhood, I certainly wouldn't be happy about it. But it's not the city's responsibility to make people whole when something happens to a neighborhood that they didn't create. If it was, we'd have to compensate every homeowner that had a bad neighbor that didn't cut their grass or didn't maintain their house as well as everybody else. We'd have to pay to fix every house that had foundation problems, and we'd have to fix every other problem that happened. It's just the nature of the beast. Some things happen, they're good. Sometimes things happen and they're bad. So what can we or what should we do? Well, first of all, a PID put together by the residents is workable and probably the best solution. And I really hope that if we go forward on that they're successful with that. But in watching the video from last week, the uncertainty of what could happen to the land also appeared to weigh heavily on the residents. Being on planning and zoning, and you guys as council, you guys know we have part of that property zone GB, and GB we're going to get what we're going to get if that property redevelops. Anything that fits in that category is entitled by right, and that's just what it is. The rest of that property that goes to the neighborhood is zoned pre-development, which means that anything that comes in has to go through a rezoning process, and that's at the discretion of staff, at P&Z, and at council. And so if anything comes in, there's a number of people looking at it, and I would submit to you that anything that would come in a proposed redevelopment would also have to include public meetings with the Northcliffe residents to make sure they're okay with what would happen to that piece of land. And finally, understanding that there's much more to a neighborhood and its perceived value than a golf course. We as a city should make some investments and look to do some of the things that the city is responsible for, like fixing the sidewalks, streets, and drainage to ensure that any potential loss in value by the closing of that golf course is not compounded by the decay of the aging public infrastructure we have in that neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else that would like to speak before we move forward? Again, I will open things up after we have our workshop. All right. Then I'm going to go ahead and go through our regular course of business here, if I may. Next thing on the agenda, we have the consent agenda items. Item 1, the minutes, approval of the minutes of the special meeting of May 21 and the minutes of the regular meeting of May 28th. 2, Resolution 19R67, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, appointing Mr. Johnny Bierswell to the Board of Directors of the Cibolo Valley Local Government Corporation, or CVLGC, place D4, replacing Mr. Steve White and other matters in connection therewith. Item number 3, Resolution 19R68, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, adopting the Bexar County election system and software Express Vote universal voting system for early voting in person, early voting by mail, election day voting, and provisional ballots, and all future elections held in Bexar County and other matters in connection therewith. And that's all of the. Is there a motion to approve the items on consent as read?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Edwards, a second from Mr. Gutierrez. Any other comments, questions of council? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
If 7 ayes, no nays, the motion carries. Understand that we skipped a presentation earlier. Are we in a position to go back to that this time, or we are? All right, well, let's do so. We'll go to the presentation of the 2019 Will and Chick Walk for Life 5K Awards and Charity Donation.
Hello, Mayor.
Good evening.
And Council. How are y'all doing?
Good.
Good. Not quite sure how to work this. Oh, there we go. All right. So today we're going to talk about the Will and Chick Walk. We're here to present some awards and the donation that we came up with this year. But first, we wanted to play a video that we collaborated with Public Affairs to help us promote the event. And we wanted to go ahead and play it now.
Tony was a very wonderful guy, honestly. He had a great sense of humor, very, very intelligent, and had a deep love for the city of Schertz. He participated in the first one, and so keeping it up for now 11 years has been wonderful, and raising the money to help the Drug Development Unit has helped a lot of people from this area, as well as people who travel to this area for the trials.
Our mission at UT Health San Antonio is to decrease the burden of cancer in San Antonio, its surrounding communities, and those of South Texas. So having access to funding such as this really does open the doors for additional treatments for those that are facing this battle. So this is really a way that we can honor the memory and the fights of those that are battling this on a daily basis, and really helps to promote groundbreaking research and discoveries that really do enhance the treatment options for folks battling this disease.
Treatments take a lot of research, and research takes a lot of money. But the way I figure it, every dollar we raise brings us that much closer to an eventual cure. And that's why I still think it's important to participate in the Walk for Life.
All right. And we want to go ahead and give awards to those who won on the race. So here to accept the award for her son is Miss Maureen Moss. If you could go ahead and come up and accept your award for Mr. Eric Moss, who won first place for the men's. And he came in at 22 minutes.
Very nice.
And then in second place, we had Mr. Councilmember Ralph Gutierrez, who came in at 22:05, right behind him. And in third place for the men's division, we had Daniel Oakes, who came in at 24:28. For the women's division, we had first place Miss Ashley Wayman, who came in 26 minutes and 50 seconds. She's not here with us today. In second place, we have Miss Pearl Gardner, who was in 27 minutes and 25 seconds. And in third place, not here with us today, is Natalie Keeney, who came in 29 minutes and 4 seconds. All right, and for the kids division, they are not with us today. In first place, we had Karis Ayala, who came in 30 minutes and 10 seconds. In second place, we had Agail Levings, 30 minutes and 70 seconds. And third place, Elijah Maddie McCaney, came in 50 minutes. All right, at this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Mayor Carpenter down to help present the check to this year's. This year, we're giving it to the cancer therapy research, which we've always done. And here to accept the check is Miss Sherry Ortiz. And then also we have Miss Willencheck here with us today as well to help us present this check, if she could come on down as well. All right, and we would also like to thank all of you guys for your support, everybody for coming out who attended and who backed us. We wanted to thank our sponsors. A big thank you to HEB, of course the City of Schertz, RE/MAX Corridor, Broadway Bank, Samco Capital Markets, Ford Engineering, Schertz Bank and Trust, GVEC, KDJ Insurance, The Y, Schertz Auto Service, and RBFCU. Thank you guys again.
Excellent. Very good. All right, we have one discussion item this evening, and that is appointments and reappointments and resignations to the various city boards, commissions, and committees. And Mrs. Dennis, I think you have a list for us.
I'm trying to switch it to the computer. Oh, thank you. Oh. Well, good afternoon, Mayor, Council, City Management. Wanted to let you know that the interview committee met on Thursday, May the 30th, and reviewed various resignations that were submitted. And as you see above, the interview committee requests council approve the following resignations. Ms. Shauna Lee Burke, Mr. Robert Lopez, Mr. Mark Tu, Mr. Tim Brown, Mr. Daniel Ortiz, Mr. Philip Rowland, Mr. Jim Fowler, Mr. David Lynch, Mr. Glenn Outlaw, and Ms. LaDonna Bacon from these boards. The interview committee also reviewed applicants who wished to be reappointed, whose terms had expired on May 31st. The committee did also conduct 14 interviews of new applicants who were wanting to serve, and recommends the following, and I'll read the following. But I did want to tell you that the city of Schertz could not do it without our volunteers, our many volunteers, and I applaud them. They do. They spend a lot of time with their boards, and they bring information back to the council. So as I read this, what I'm doing is doing the reappointments and appointments of the members. For the Board of Adjustments, the reappointment of Frank McAlloy, the reappointment of Regina Agee, the reappointment of Danielle Solis. Building and Standards, we have a new appointment of Mr. Captain Daniel Frenchy Bourget, and I believe that he is in the audience. Would you please stand, him and his family? We have Mr. Matthew Wood, who's also a new appointment as a regular member. I'm not sure if he's in the audience, but if you are, please stand. Mr. Sean Moore is also a new appointment as an alternate member to the Building and Standards Commission. And if you are in the audience, please stand. For the Committee of Committees Advisory Board, we are reappointing Mr. Richard Jevitz, Mr. Paul Macaluso, and from the Library Board, we are going to have a Chris Bryan and a Patty Dilworth. They are going to be splitting the responsibilities because of the time that the committee meets. The Economic Development Corporation, we are going to reappoint Mr. Roy Richard. The new appointment, Mr. Benjamin Ben McDaniel. If he's in the audience, please stand. Mr. Brian Snowden, he's also a new appointment as a regular member. Please stand. For the Historical Preservation Committee, reappointment of Paul Riggenbach, Rosalind Wise, Pete Perez, John Baker, and we are also going to appoint Mr. Captain Daniel Frenchy Bourget as a regular member because he has some benefits that he can bring to our Historical Preservation Committee as well. We are going to be also appointing a new member, Ms. Sabrina Allen, as a regular member, and she's replacing Ms. LaDonna Bacon. She was not able to be here this evening because she was ill. But as you can see, as we continue going through the reappointments and appointments, these people, this is just the terms that were expired this year. We have many, many. And so as I read, reappointments of Laura Wilson, Ruth Teener, Patty Dilworth, Margaret Riley, Patty Paulson, Kenneth Bauer. He is now reappointed as a regular member. Christine Bryan is reappointed as a regular member. And we have new members, Beverly Clark and Julie Smith. They have been reappointed as alternate members. If they're in the audience, please stand. On the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, reappointment of Regina Agee, Mr. Floyd Faye Simmons, reappointment. Robert Sheridan, we are going to reappoint as a regular member. Carol Yeager, we are reappointing as a regular member. And we have two new alternate members, Mr. James Garvin and Sean Moore. If they're in the audience, please stand. For the Planning and Zoning Commission, the reappointments of Gordon Ray, LaDonna Bacon, and Richard Brode. For the Transportation Safety Advisory Commission, reappointment of Stephen Bish, Bill Bowers, Richard Jevitz, Mark Moody, John Sullivan. For Brandon Bristow, we are moving and reappointing him as a regular member to the Transportation Safety Advisory Commission. And we have a new appointment, Tyler Hensley. She is now appointed as an alternate member. And she stands. Vacancy still open. We have one alternate position on the Building and Standards. And of course, over the weekend, gentlemen, we had a resignation on the Economic Development Corporation, and I believe the interview committee has been given a couple of the applications. But based on these recommendations I've read, I recommend council approve the reappointments, resignations, and appointments as read, and I was the voice of the interview committee.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to move from the chair that we approve the appointments, reappointments, and resignations to the various city boards, commissions, and committees as read.
Second. Oh, Mr. Davis?
I got a second from Mr. Davis. Any other comments or questions from council?
Just one comment.
Yes, sir.
I just want to thank all those that have served, and thanks for all those that are stepping up to serve this great city. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone else? I want to echo that. Since prior to 1958, when this city was incorporated, volunteers have stepped forward and made most of what's happened in the city go on. The city staff does amazing work, but BVYA would not be here without volunteers. CISA would not be here without volunteers. The library would not be here without its volunteers. The water system that we have would not be here without volunteers. And it is the volunteers that have been the backbone of this city for nearly 60, well, for now more than 60 years. So thank you to everyone who has stepped forward to make a contribution to this community. With that said, I'll call for a vote.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
7 ayes and no nays. The motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
Thank you, ma'am. Next item on the agenda is a roll call vote confirmation.
Number 1 is the consent items 1 through 3. Councilmember Edwards made the motion, seconded by Councilmember Gutierrez. Mayor Pro Tem Hayward voted yes. Councilmembers Davis, Gutierrez, Larson, Edwards, Scagliola, and Brown voted yes. Motion passed. The second is item number 4, resignations, reappointments, appointments to boards, committees, and commissions and boards. The motion was made from the chair, seconded by Councilmember Davis. Mayor Pro Tem Hayward voted yes. Councilman members Davis, Gutierrez, Larson, Edwards, Scagliola, and Brown voted yes, and the motion was passed.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. All right, on to our workshops this evening. The first workshop we're going to have is item number 5, discussion on public improvement districts. And I don't know, Mr. Santee, are you going to take care of this for us? What we've asked is for our city attorney to perhaps overview and simplify the 25 riveting pages that are, in fact, that act. It's actually a very short piece of legislation from our state legislature. If you want something fun to read, try Senate Bill 2 or House Bill 1 from this last session. Hundreds of pages of extraordinary legalese. Mr. Santee, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, Dr. Brown. We'll pull up the presentation here shortly as soon as we get the screen back. Maybe. The mouse doesn't like them. I did. There we go. All right, and I was excited to hear that there's at least one citizen who finds Chapter 372 as riveting, as exciting as I do. It gave me great hope that this would be well received. It does have a lot of information in it. We'll try to summarize it here, and I'm happy to answer questions as I go along. I mean, we can, from the council, that is. I'll stop at any point to address matters, and I'm going to try to highlight a few things as I go through this. This is really a bullet point of the chapter.
Okay, and what I'll say to everyone that's here, I'd like to go through the process of letting our city attorney make his presentation, answer questions from council. Those may address any questions that you have, and at the end, again, without any objection from council, I will invite folks to come up and speak and ask questions. If Mr. Santee is in a position to answer those questions at this time, we can allow him to do that because we are posted for this. If not, we'll capture the questions and then we will get answers back out to you. So with that, again, Mr. Santee, please.
Yes, sir. And along those lines, I've heard mention already tonight. We've heard mention of zoning, and we've heard mention of eminent domain, and I am not going to be addressing either one of those issues in this presentation or tonight. So, first off, it's important to note that the petition process that's required for a public improvement district, and you'll hear me refer to it as a PID, can be, those powers are granted to either city council or through the petition that the city council receives from citizens. And the one thing that's required, obviously, is that this has to promote an interest of the municipality because it is a public improvement district. So that's important to note. This is a list from the statute as to all the eligible projects. I'm not going to read through that, but I would point out that it also includes the payment of expenses incurred in the establishment, administration, and operation of a PID. So the first question that you have to answer is whether or not the North Cliff community has an eligible project. And within that list, there were park improvements. A golf course is a park improvement, in our opinion. There was also water and wastewater mentioned in that laundry list, and I'm aware that there is a wastewater element out there because of the effluent that is being used to currently water that golf course. So if that were something, that is something that could be included. It's also important to note that anything in that laundry list can be put together as one project. So you can have multiple things. You can have, it's not an issue that the golf course winds around through different roads and streets and things such as that. It can still be considered it can be done through one proceeding, one financing, and one project as far as a PID is concerned. And that would also includes financing the acquisition, improvement, and operation. So the petition requirements, this is one of the more critical things when you're talking about a PID, because often in municipal government, when we hear about petitions, we think about rollbacks and we think about removals from office, things like that, and how you go around and you get signatures, or sometimes you have to get signatures for a petition to get on a ballot. This petition is a very different type of petition. It's very detailed. And one of the things that I heard mentioned earlier from one of the citizen comments was about, what is the purchase price, or being able to purchase it. As you'll see in these requirements, it's going to be very critical that you know what the costs are up front. That has to be included in the petition. You have to know the general nature, the estimated cost of the improvement, and that's any cost that you want to roll into the PID process. What are the boundaries? What's the method of assessment? Because the assessment, as I'll go into more detail later, does not have to be the same throughout the boundaries that you establish. Is the cost going to be a portion between the city and the improvement district, or is it going to be borne solely by the improvement district? Is it going to be managed by the city or by the private sector or some type of partnership, public partnership? And any person that signs this has to have all this information. They have to acknowledge that they received all this information prior to signing on to the petition and concurring with the establishment. Because also, this runs with the land, so it's not one of those things that is just that person's responsibility. So once these assessments are done, they're going to run with the land, they're going to stay with the property that's assessed until it is extinguished, until it's paid in full. And the city council, of course, can establish an advisory body if it so chooses. What makes a petition sufficient is given to us in the statute as well. This part is a little confusing, and I had to read it numerous times, and I'm hoping Councilman Larson's going to explain it to me when I'm done here, because I still don't know that I fully understand exactly how we determine this. But here's how it reads to me. First, we have to have more than 50% that represent the appraised value within the boundaries. And we also have to have those who constitute 50% or more of all the record owners, not just in value, but the record owners of all the property, and 50% that constitute the area of all taxable real property liable for the assessment. So it's three different ways to look at more than 50%. So we need to make sure that when the petition comes in, when we check it for sufficiency, we're going to have to look at all three of those factors, not just the value, not just the area, not just the number. Okay, so we're going to have to weigh each one of those and make sure we're over 50% no matter how we look at that petition. Petition is filed with City Secretary, and if it complies with the subchapter, if it's sufficient, if it's determined to be sufficient, then the City Council may make findings, and I'll go through those in more detail here in a second, and may appoint the advisory body. There is a public hearing required, and before it can be established any improvements provided by the district may be financed, you have to have this public hearing and a determination on the advisability of the improvement. Notice of the hearing must be given through publication before the 15th day, before the date of the hearing, which is the same as when you do zoning. And also written notice has to go out to all of the property owners within the area that is being considered for assessment. That includes the information that was the same information that was on that petition. This is what that notice must entail: the time and place of the hearing, the general nature of the proposed improvement, the estimated cost, the boundaries, the method of assessment, and the apportionment. So you're going to keep seeing those same things over and over because that's throughout this statute. Those are the key factors that are going to have to be looked at and notice given and findings on by the council. You have to make your findings by resolution as to whether or not it's advisable, the improvement is. And again, the nature, the estimated cost, the boundaries, the method of assessment, and the apportionment. Those will all be in the resolution. You have 6 months. There's a 6-month period after that public hearing, during which you can take that final vote to create the district. So you have a window of time there, and then it has to be published one more time after the authorization takes effect. After that is done, once you've actually created it. So the apportionment is something that will need to be looked at and considered, because the way it says that you shall apportion it is based on the basis of the special benefits accruing to the property because of the improvement. And, that I guess that could be open for interpretation to some extent, but that is how it says you shall make the apportionment. So when you're looking at, this is hypothetically speaking, when you look at a golf course, our home in Abilene, before we moved down we made the jump down here, was on a golf course, but it wasn't on the golf course, as the people on the golf course would tell me all the time, because I was across the street, didn't back up on the golf course. I was like, yeah, but I can have an opaque fence and y'all can't, because that was the deed restrictions, yada, yada, yada. So, but our benefits might have been different. The tax office certainly thought our benefits were different from living across the street versus living on the golf course. So that's one of the, when we talk about apportionment on the basis of benefits accruing, that's a factor that has to be considered. And this is the assessment methodology that can be used. It can be equally per front foot or square foot. It can be according to the value of the property as determined by the city council, with or without regards to improvements on the property. In any other manner that results in imposing equal shares of the cost on property similarly benefited. So that goes back to apportionment. So when you look within a large neighborhood and you're trying to assess and apportion costs and what's fair, we have to do it in a manner that's equal among those that are similarly benefited by the district, by whatever this improvement is. By ordinance, it's not required, but you may establish by ordinance the reasonable classifications and formulas for the apportionment of the cost between the municipality and the area to be assessed. So whatever formula you come up with or devise that's going to make that equitable and equal among the different types of properties would be in this ordinance, and the method of assessing the special benefits for the various classes of improvements. And the amount of assessment for each property owner may be adjusted following the annual review of the service plan. So I take that to mean that this can be looked at each year and adjusted accordingly if the projections or how this is working is not going as anticipated over time. It can be evaluated and adjusted. There is also a process in the statute for dissolution. And it follows, I didn't repeat all of it because the petition process is the same as it is the format. It has to meet all the same requirements if you want to dissolve it, meaning that you still have to get the 50%, you have to hit the 50% numbers on those signing the petition. If it is dissolved, though, even if it's dissolved a year into this, 2 years into it, or whatever the case may be, that the district is going to nonetheless remain in effect for the purpose of meeting the obligations of indebtedness for improvements And those assessments, like I said, do run with the land until the total obligation is paid. That's no different when you think about it to other types of special districts that are created. Once they take on debt, they have to continue until that debt is paid. That's no different with your development corporation. If you dissolve your development corporation, that sales tax continues to be collected until all their obligations are made. So this is the same throughout most of the statutes that allow you to do this type of assessment. And that is all I have on this, and I'm happy to answer questions. I can go back through any particular item if the council has specific questions.
I think what first I'm going to open it up to the city council and let the members ask any questions that they may have. When council has exhausted their questions, then I will open it up to the public, as I had said, for any questions you may have. So first, Mr. Edwards.
You know, the assessment methodology that you use here, it says that the value of the property is determined by the city council. So where does the appraisal district come in as well? Because I know the appraisal district will also assess a value as well.
Right, and understand too, that's referring, in this instance, that wouldn't solely be referring to each one of those individual properties. It's the overall value of the improvement that's being, that you're creating the pit around. And, but also taking into account those other differences among the property. That's a factor you would obviously look at, the appraisal district and what the value they put on that property. But you can look at other factors as well. As I said, if you back up onto the golf course, if you're a private community that backs up onto the golf course, is that different than another? This would be a public course, obviously, as well. At this point going forward, it wouldn't continue to be a private golf club. It would be a municipal golf course. But again, yeah, each one of those properties, whatever you determine, the factors, we would put them in an ordinance, whatever those factors are. That would certainly be one of them, though, the appraised value.
Next up. Any questions? Mr. Larson.
Can you go back to the beginning and just help me understand the difference between citizen-initiated and city-initiated? It seems to me like the requirements are the same either way, so what's the difference there?
Well, the difference would be that the city council has no obligation, obviously, to go through the petition process and to use city resources to gather the signatures necessary to do the legwork necessary to come up with the calculations if you're forming a public utility district. Now, often that authority would solely rest, you would think, like logically, you would think, okay, the government, this is something for the government to do. What this statute does is actually empower your citizens, give them a power that you would usually see reserved to the government to go out and do this on their own initiative and bring it to petition their governing body to say, hey, we've got all this. We want y'all to assess us and have this public improvement. So I think you're correct that the difference in the actual process is no different no matter who initiates it. It's just that in this instance, the citizens have the right to initiate it.
And then one of the things that I thought was maybe humorous, but maybe you can educate me otherwise, it talks about the city council with the resolution referencing the advisability. Is that defined, or is that simply the determination from random 7 people up here say, yeah, it's advisable? Or is that like a specific threshold we have to meet?
No, it's not. It's not specifically defined. I think that and this is Dr. Brown might want to jump in on this one, because what you get into in any of these situations is the economic feasibility based on how many properties are going to be within that. I would assume there's a line beyond which you really wouldn't want to go on an assessment on a property, and there's probably a line on how large those boundaries could be until it's no longer advisable to burden all those properties because it runs with the land. Those are economic factors that your finance director or experts that are retained by the citizens would bring forward to you. But when it talks about advisability, I think those are the factors that it's getting into.
You know, I agree with those factors. We'd have to determine what the factors are once we receive the petition, and the decision was before the governing body. At that point, we would need to determine what factors would lead to a finding as to the advisability of the improvement.
Council, other questions?
Real quick, down here, we're talking about the city
Brown?
and all of this. This does cross 2 county. It's in 2 counties. Is there any differences in that?
There's not. The way that, except that a county can be the body that is petitioned rather than a city council, but in this instance, this would be before the city council. Yeah.
Council, anyone else? Mr. Davis?
We would have to identify the boundaries, though, ahead of time,
The boundaries have to be identified up front. Yes.
so that we know how many effective signatures we would need.
That is correct, and I think more difficult than that is to determine those boundaries. You need to know cost and what is going to be included in those costs, because there can be multiple things that go into that, as noted at the beginning. That you can include any of these other things in there, the acquisition, improvement, and operation. A lot of moving parts on that. But yeah, I think that's going to determine, those things there are going to determine what that boundary has to be.
Others? I'm going to leave this item open for the council, and I am going to ask Mr. Santee if he would have a seat for just a moment. I'm going to invite anyone that would like to come up and pose your comments or your questions. I would ask, because we don't have a sign-up sheet for this, because we're stepping outside of our normal procedure, that you do give your name and address so that the city secretary can capture that for the record. I would ask that we keep things to about 3 minutes, but as the chair, I've got a little bit of room to ease that a bit if need be. So at this time, anyone that would like to address the council should come forward and do so, please.
Thank you. So I guess my concern is...
Would you say you already did it earlier?
Okay.
Name and address for the city secretary.
Michelle Oden, 5801 Black Diamond.
Thank you.
Okay. So I guess my biggest concern with all of this is the land that the golf course exists on. And since it's not for sale, as much as I want this to happen, because as you all know, where my house sits on the 14th tee box, and considering that we just put about 35 grand into improvements on the house this past year, I have a very vested interest in seeing this thing through. So I guess my question is, okay, so we start working on this petition and we start trying to determine boundaries. Honestly, I think, figuring out who is most directly involved and affected by the golf course is probably, of the list of hard things, the easiest of the hard things that we have to overcome. I think the hardest thing is, what's the price of the land? And how do we even contact the person? And I'm not trying to be a naysayer. We've already heard one. I'm really not trying to be. But I do think it's a realistic concern, is how do we go about even contacting Mr. Chen or whoever his representatives are in doing that, in trying to see if he's even interested in selling. Because right now, I kind of feel like he has the upper hand on us rather than us having the upper hand on him. He's not offering the property for sale. He's not maintaining it. The residents are. And so he really doesn't have an interest or any kind of motivation to sell the property. So in looking at this, how can we get him motivated? And so I know that you all have put out signs of the code enforcement went and put out signs of some of the property, but I don't even think that property is owned by him. I think that is owned by somebody else. At least the name didn't match any of his properties. I may be wrong. So I guess that's where we start. And so the other thought I had, and that may be something that the HOA presidents might know of, is, okay, how do we get the different HOA committees together so that we're all not trying to do different things? Instead, we can all be working together to get this petition to you all. And so those are kind of my concerns, is that, okay, let's get this started. So how do we do this? How do we get those people or that company, the LLC that owns it, or the person that has formed the LLC to own it, to do that? And I guess, if you all have any advice, we'd welcome it. And if you don't, well, then we'll figure it out, and that's fair enough.
Certainly. I think that one of the things that we can do is provide you with the the results of the study that we had done years ago. And then it will certainly give you an overview of the recommendations that were made, some of the cost estimates that were made, to kind of give you an initial basis for what the cost might look like. As far as the, who owns it, so I took time to go on to both the Guadalupe County Appraisal District site and the Comal County Appraisal District site, and I apologize I didn't write it down, but there is a single entity that is currently listed on the tax rolls as the owner with a domestic address. I don't know where that leads. So nearly everything that we have as a city is a matter of public record, and we'd be happy to share that with you to help give you some of the, at least, cost basis. Somewhere we have a copy of an offer that we made that was not accepted. Maybe we can find that and find out who we made the offer to. That would be a lead as well. But we'll certainly provide you with all the information that we have that we've accumulated over time. So, Mr. Edwards?
Mr. Mayor, there's a gentleman raising his hand trying to get notice to speak, I'm assuming.
Come on up, please.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Councilman, I'm Dave Roberts, former interim owner of Northcliff, 3771 Pebble Beach. I live on the golf course as well. It's a sad story, but so everybody will know, because there's so many things going around right now, what's going on. I will let everybody know. Thank God you're dead, because last time I had a bald head. In 2017, the golf course was going to close. He was going to walk away like he did Texas National. And I leased the property for $1 a month. Gave him $50, okay? And I bought his management company, GEZ Investment LLC, for $10 because I was trying to save Northcliff in our community. I put a lot of money, and I won't name the figure, only a few people know, of my own personal money into this to keep it going for the neighborhood. I could have walked away at any time, but I didn't until I got 40 grand into the hole, okay? Decisions had to be made. I apologize to you personally, Mr. Mayor. You're a member of the golf course. You mentioned that last week, and I just want to confirm that you were a member of the golf course. He just wasn't saying that he was a member, him and his wife. Sunday afternoon, 5.5-hour rounds, but hey, that's another story at another time.
We're not fast, please.
You were efficient. You saw the whole course. Anyway, so some extenuating circumstances happened, and we had to shut down really, really quick. And that's between me and my lawyers, and I'll get with the city council. What can we do? I have obtained today all the information that you need, who to contact, emails, personal cell phone numbers. Mr. Chin is actually in San Antonio right now, unbeknownst to anybody. And I found that out by accident with a phone conversation while I was at my other job that I now have to. And I do apologize for all the residents, but I have to feed my family. I haven't paid myself in 6 months, okay? I paid my employees first, so y'all can take that out the door because that's the rumor that I didn't pay my employees. I did everything I could to keep the golf course until it broke me, okay? So I want that on the record that I did everything I could. I just didn't walk away like he was going to do. But what I'm offering now for no charge to this city, because I love Schertz, I live in Schertz, I will consult for you and be your go-between for these two entities or any other entity that wants to purchase or try to purchase the golf course. I will help you in any way and give you all the information you need from the ground up.
Very good.
And I thank y'all for your minute.
Thank you, sir. So I think the short answer is that gentleman there has all the information that you're asking about and should probably serve on your committee. Yes, ma'am. Please.
Ann Lads, 3808 Pheasant.
Thank you.
I've listened to everybody talk. Most of us stand up and we only care about ourselves. And I'm one of those that I want the golf course to stay open. We built a house there just for the golf course. But let's not think about the few people around the golf course. Let's think about the city of Schertz. Let's think about all of the other people that's going to be affected. Let's talk about our kids. We have parks. It costs you money to keep those parks going. You're going to have more parks, you're going to pay more money. So if you think that you're not going to, you are. But you've got kids that use that golf course every week. That golf course kept our kids off the streets. I saw them out there every day. Young girls, young boys. I saw them being taught the courtesy of being on a golf course, of being polite. Our schools use that golf course. We are one of the few towns, and I say town, that doesn't have a municipal golf course. And I think that municipal golf course would be an asset to everybody in Schertz, especially our young kids and families. Thank you.
Come in. Thank you.
Dave Parker, 3325 Sherwin Drive. This is one governing entity, okay? It appears that Councilman Brown said that there are two other governing entities involved in this. The county government of, I guess, Guadalupe and Comau. We're aiming towards one solution, which is this district. It appears that that's 2 years of work to make it happen. Would you agree, Mr. Santee? I mean, from just the rigmarole to get it done, it appears to be 2 years. And it may not happen even if you get to that point. Are we not looking towards one solution with blinders rather than looking towards a broader solution and seeing if county government could come up with any help? I don't even know if it's possible, but I know that county government has helped build in San Antonio a baseball stadium. They've helped build numerous other things in San Antonio. Why can't a county do something for us here besides that? I mean, we're aiming towards one thing, and I got to tell you, looking at and I've tried to do projects with Rockport and Fulton and the GLO and so on, and getting through that stuff down there, I never was able to get it done. Now, the county seems to be able to do things because they do have access to funds that you don't have. And couldn't that be a possibility? And why are we targeting one solution rather than exploring those other solutions first?
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Mr. Gutierrez.
Mr. Santee, there's one variable that's an unknown variable, and that is water. Would they have to provide more or less the cost of repairs to rebuild that treatment center, or just the cost of the water, the number of gallons that they will be pumping out of there? Would there be...
Going to defer that over to Dr. Brown.
Yeah, and we're going to take that up on the next agenda item. We'll get into some detail there. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, thank you very much. Dean Dawson, 3325 Columbia Drive.
Thank you.
Just a real simple question, sir. Last time when I was up here, I was explaining, just like the fine lady from Pheasant Street,
that there are high school students that go out and practice. We've seen tournaments out there with the students wearing different colored shirts representing their schools. So the question that I had was, is it possible to actually reach out to the school districts that were participating, out there at the golf course, working, to get those children to thrive? Because again, there are a lot of scholarships for students out there, and there are plenty. And so there are a lot of opportunities for those children to go on into higher education. And so I just wanted to ask, is it possible, to reach out to the school districts? Thank you.
Very good. I suspect we'll take that up under the next agenda item as well, the next workshop item. Anyone else that would like to ask a question about the public improvement district portion of this? Mr. Edwards.
I saw a young lady with a hand up first, so I'll defer to her, the citizen out there, and
Please.
I'll go after that.
Good evening.
Yolanda Ringberg, 3759 Columbia Drive.
Thank you.
Came here to talk about Northcliff. We're very proud of our golf course. And I just want to say that we're happy with all the paths, bike paths we have, the jogging paths, the dog parks, everything we have for everybody else. But we need something for the senior citizens too. We all moved to the golf course because we as retired seniors, we don't want to go too far away into the traffic. It is more convenient to stay where we bought and golf there. So please consider having Northcliff open for the seniors. Remember the seniors. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ray Martin, 5701 Whistling Straits. I spoke at the last meeting. We'd just like to address something that was brought up looking at other developments for that property. The only thing that's going to be developable or able to develop is along 35. The fairways that are there, they're too narrow to cut another street there and put houses there. They're going to become useless property that's going to become a burden to this city to maintain that. And I mean, I'm open if somebody can show me how you can take a strip of property that those fairways are and develop it into anything that's going to benefit this city or the residents of this. You know, yeah, the loss in tax revenue is not going to kill this city. But it's going to be a chunk of money over time that's going to eat at this city. We have several people out here that are more than willing to take on this and try to save this. I don't know the Dave that was running the golf course out there all that well, but I know he put his heart and soul into it. But he was running on a shoestring budget from the time he started, and he knew when he took that on. That much I do know. So, yeah, it's not going to be a quick, easy fix, but I really think for the not only the good of the residents out there, but for the good of this city, we need to give it an all-out effort to find every possible means to bring that course back. It'll never be a PGA course. We don't expect it to be that. But if it can be a nice, affordable course that people can get out and play, and yes, me living on the golf course, the teenagers and even young kids are out there playing that course, or were out there playing that course They're abundant. So I also look at it, it's making an investment in the youth of this community. I'd much rather have them out there on the golf course than vandalizing buildings and spraying graffiti on stuff. So I myself, and I know several out here, are more than willing to get involved to do what we can to save this and make it, as I stated before, a crown jewel in this city. And any support and help and guidance we can get out of the city is greatly appreciated. I'm not here to attack the city by any means. I'm here asking for help. We'll provide manpower, but we need help. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Robert Peters, 5705 Fairways Drive. Got I guess what would be considered a personal question along these lines. We were here last week, saw the pictures of the golf course in Houston, saw what they've turned into. We've had an unusually wet spring and winter. Mr. Robertson, some posts, has stated that's part of what has hurt him from lack of play. My home is on one of the fairways. I look across 2 fairways to my next neighbor. When those grasses get to 6 feet tall, it becomes a jungle. We get rattlesnakes, coyotes, all the wonderful things that will come with that. What's going to happen? We've all been told that it's private property, can't be cut. People that live on it are willing to go out there and do that. We were told no, that that's not what we should do. My question is, what happens as far as whether it be you want to call it health, wildlife, wherever the case may be, what's going to be done to eliminate that as a threat, not only to the homeowners that are right on the course, but to everybody that lives right around that course with what that's going to bring. I mean, that's not just the people on the course, that's all of Northcliffe, that's all of Fairhaven, everybody along 1103 that's butted up to the course. You know, and probably even some danger going up onto the access road to 35. What happens? How's that going to be handled? Who's going to take care of that? Is that going to be the private property? Is it going to be something that Mr. Chen has to do? Or is the city going to have to come in and do something about that and spend the money at that point once it gets to a ridiculous level? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thompson, 3325 Charleston Lane. I would just like to propose that we rehire Dave to come back to the golf course, and the city and the county and maybe the schools and everyone chip in, and he could give us an amount. I'm thinking maybe $250,000 a year for a year or two. It's just a thought. And while we get everything done, someone said it might take 2 years. We can set aside that money for a year or two so that we can know what we're going to do. And again, it's not about any individual person on the golf course. It's got to be about the community of Schertz and Cibolo. If we're not together, if we can't get everybody wanting this, it's not going to work. It's only 225 houses on the golf course or something close to that. So we want to not, like the lady said in the beginning, don't just think about your own self and your own personal property. Let's put this to prayer. You gave a beautiful prayer last week. I forgot to tell you that too, and I wanted to bring that up. Thank you so much. But please, let's join forces and think about the community and do it as a community. And I would like to know if you all are willing to do so, if you would share how you feel, if you're yay or nay for the golf course. If you don't, I understand, but if you would, that's great. So we'll know what we're up against. You know, if we don't have your support right now, we've got to win it. We want to do what we can to do that. And if we already have it, then we can focus on those that we don't have. Thank you.
Yeah. And I do expect we'll get into some of that in the next agenda item. Mr. Edwards.
Mr. Mayor, I took the liberty to speak with a couple of gentlemen from Touchstone Golf, Troy Seiko and Doug Harker. I actually asked them to be here tonight so that they could possibly answer some questions about what to expect if this were to go on for 6 weeks, 6 months, what this course is going to look like, what would it cost to rehab it. I believe in the data and the metrics, and they provided me with quite a bit of information here. And I understand they took a tour of the course as well. Are they here, Doug? And Doug, could you guys come up for
Maybe on the next agenda item, not on this one. We really should be restricting ourselves to discussion of the PID. This particular item is on the public improvement districts themselves, and then we'll consider whether or not we'll hear from anybody in the public on the next item.
All right. Thank you guys for being here.
You bet. Anyone else on the public improvement district itself? Doesn't look like I have any takers. I want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity. All right, council, anyone else on the public improvement districts and the information given to us by the city attorney? All right, we're going to move on to item number 6, which is discussion on the golf course itself proper. So, Wood?
Mr. Mayor, we have 3 short presentations. One is on the zoning of the golf course itself. Lisa's going to give that. Then we have a short presentation on code enforcement from the police department, and then also on the water issues associated with the course from Public Works.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Dr. Brown. He stole my thunder. I was going to give that whole. We're providing an overview of these items, so I'll just run right into the zoning. So the zoning of the property at the golf course it has 2 zoning districts currently. The frontage of the property is zone general business, and this rear U-shaped has the pre-development zoning. The distance here between 35 and where the GB zoning ends is variable, anywhere from 500 feet to 750 feet, 730 to 750, right in here, and that runs, both sides of the freeway. So our general business zoning district, and I'll probably flip back and forth so I can kind of go over some of it, is intended for our non-residential uses, which is our commercial uses, and most of those common uses involve retail, shops and services, professional offices, restaurants, some automobile repair. We have quite a bit of that out there. And then some of the high-intensity uses include some bars and dance halls, heavy equipment sales, like manufactured home sales, RV sales, etc. And then I wanted to provide you a list of all the items that's allowed in general business zoning district. There's 68 items here, and one of those includes a golf course and country club here. So 68 different items. There's some as antique shop. We can go through here, daycare center, a variety of items, but it's basically one of our more intense commercial uses. The next one I'd like to talk about is a little bit about the pre-development zoning district, and that is this area that's right back here. Currently, that's zoned pre-development, and in the pre-development zoning district, it's intended for be a placeholder for properties that are annexed. And so currently, there are very few uses that are allowed in our pre-development zoning district. That would be municipal facilities, schools by right, and then churches by a specific use permit. It's a placeholder, and so anybody who would want to do anything other than those uses would have to go through the zoning process. So they would actually have to go through and submit an application, go through public hearings, it would end up in front of council with a recommendation, and ultimately council would make the decision on what that could be zoned as. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about is the Unified Development currently has a section in the zoning chapter for golf course zoning districts. It's intended for public or private golf courses. It's also, as I pointed out earlier, listed on our permitted uses table in various zoning districts. However, that's the use itself. However, the actual zoning district is currently not established in the UDC on the density and dimension chart or on our permitted uses table as a zoning district. So if that is something that somebody would be interested to come in and do, we would actually have to go through the process of getting that into our Unified Development Code as a zoning district. But currently, in this area, it can be zoned to a commercial use or various other uses that would allow golf course. Next up is Thomas.
Officer Brooks, City of Schertz Police Department Code Enforcement. I'm here to give a brief description of what role code enforcement can anticipate playing in the event that this property falls into violation of some of our city codes. First would be unsafe structures and equipment. Once a structure is found to be unsecured, a notice of violation will be sent to the property owner, and the property owner will be responsible to secure it. In the event that they don't, the city comes in, we secure it, and we send a bill to the owner. Mowing of grass and weeds, which is a popular discussion topic. Once overgrown weeds are observed, a notice of violation is sent to the property owner again. The property owner is responsible to abate the violation. Property owner fails to do so, the city will abate it and send the property owner a bill.
Why don't you, Thomas, discuss the boundaries for that? We go back.
Boundaries will be 50 feet from a roadway, a public roadway, and 75 feet from a building. And that's the buffer we put on the lot. Then we have stagnant water. When stagnant water is observed, and there are no natural predators for the mosquitoes, such as fish found in the water, and the water is not seen circulating, we'll treat the water with larvicide and send notice to the owner, too, that they need to maintain the stagnant water, and we'll bill them accordingly, too. Graffiti or any kind of vandalism, once we observe graffiti, we'll send a notice to the owner of the property telling them they need to abate the graffiti. If they do not abate the graffiti, we will force abate it and send the bill to the property owner. What we got.
Good evening. Something that's not on the slide is an initiative that we will begin tomorrow, and we will have officers in ATVs that will be patrolling the golf course for the foreseeable future. So it won't be an everyday thing, but several times a week.
Very good. Thank you, Chief.
Good evening. On the GBRA plant operations, the primary goal from City of Schertz, GBRA, and CCMA are to stay in compliance with TCQ rules and regulations. GBRA is going to continue to monitor and operate the plant until the time CCMA can take over. Right now, the treated effluent that's coming out of the plant is going to CCMA's facilities. The city's responsible for paying the treatment cost for GBRA with the annual budget, and then we're also paying for the treated effluent that's going to CCMA. And then we'll also be responsible for the capacity charges to CCMA when the plant actually moves over entirely to CCMA. CCMA is, like I said, is going to continue to receive the treated effluent and take that offhand, so it doesn't. We're lowering the levels in the pond in case we have a big rainstorm or something like that, so we can emergencies. And the existing CCMA plant improvements are going to be done around mid-August of this year, so that's the time when we'll be able to actually switch it all over.
Okay, very good. All right. Again, it's very unusual that we would recognize some additional speakers on this. Granted, however, this is an extraordinary situation, so I'm going to invite the folks that Mr. Edwards spoke to come forward and present their commentary and let us know what you see and what you found.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Doug Harker, Executive Vice President and one of the owners of Touchstone Golf, and this is Troy Sacco, the Vice President of Operations. We are not residents of Schertz, however, we are Texans. Touchstone is based in Austin, 45 minutes up the road. Troy bases out of Dallas.
Cool. Why don't you give us the address for the Austin office?
Sure. It's 11612 Bee Cave Road, Austin, Texas 78738, Suite 150.
Thank you.
So we, as a golf course management company in Texas, we have been monitoring the situation at Northcliffe for some time. Just to give you a snippet on us, Touchstone is 15 years old. We operate and manage 42 golf courses in 10 states. About half of those are for municipal enterprises like cities, counties, and so forth. Nearby here, the closest ones would be Battleground in Deer Park for the city of Deer Park and Casablanca Golf Course in Laredo for Webb County. So a lot of familiarity with the challenges that are faced in public golf. My brother and I grew up in public golf, and we built our business initially on very difficult, troubled situations like this. So we have a lot of experience in dealing with that. We took a tour of the golf course today with some very resourceful residents who have been maintaining it for you. We applaud them for keeping it in some form of playability. But realistically, their ability to do that on an ongoing basis, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, is going to be extremely challenging. The golf course needs fertilizer, it needs different types of mowing equipment, et cetera, to maintain it as a golf course. So to give you a little bit of perspective on that, we consider 3 different levels of maintenance of a golf course. Basically, what level 1 is mowing it out at what we refer to as highway height, just to make sure that the issues that some of the speakers referenced don't take place in terms of wildlife and risk and dangers associated with that. When we do that, and we have done that for some clients, Wedgwood in Conroe, Texas, you will lose the golf course. The golf course will not be restorable in a traditional sense, but it at least will be maintained so that the residents on the course, near the course, aren't put at risk. Level 2 is a little bit different. When we maintain a golf course at level 2, like Spanish Oaks in Austin, Texas, when they were going through some financial troubles, at level 2, we're maintaining the course so that it's not playable, but it's recoverable with a reasonable investment when it's ready to become a golf course again, which Spanish Oaks has now become a golf course again. Level 3 is different. Level 3 maintains the golf course as playable, but possibly not open or only partially open. Now, the investment that's required annually to keep it at level 1, level 2, and level 3 varies, and we wouldn't want to quote you a number at a meeting like this without doing our due diligence, but just to give you some approximate ranges that could vary by anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 per year. The first level I mentioned can be done for as cheap as $100,000 a year. The second level is closer to $200,000 a year, and the third level is going to be $300,000 a year. But again, I would say depending on the circumstances, you could have a variance of up to $100,000. One of the benefits here, and one of the great uses of golf courses across the country, is the ability to use the effluent. And I didn't quite catch all the substance of the last slide that was presented. But I'm not sure if that golf course stops irrigating, how much effluent can be diverted to other locations. So if that is a problem, then there'd be a lot of reasons to try to do a level 1 or level 2 or level 3 maintenance, but doesn't sound like there is. So when we look at something like a public improvement district, we operate one for a property, similar property in New Orleans area right now. One of the things you have to consider in trying to estimate a cost is going to be which level you're going to maintain it at for these period of time that it takes to create the PID, because depending on what level it is, that's going to drive what your total investment is going to be for the golf course property when the time comes for the PID to actually come into existence, if that makes sense. So those are some numbers that we could probably help you with. We know Dave Roberts. Dave's a well-known quantity in the golf community and does great work, but as noted, without a budget to execute, it's almost impossible. So with that, I did want to make one comment about the National Golf Foundation. The gentleman that spoke was spot on his statistics, with the exception of one. Greg Nathan is a close friend of Touchstone. He presented actually at our national conference. He is in charge of research for the National Golf Foundation. And what they have discovered is that there is a tremendous amount of latent demand in the golf business. There's 24 million active golfers. There are 15 million latent golfers. And basically what those are defined as are people that want to play. The difference in executing so that the people that want to play are playing at your property is what we refer to as programming. So when you have a lot of activities at your golf course, a lot of things for people to do, whether they're golfers or non-golfers, we sponsor movie nights, we sponsor music, we do all those sorts of things at our properties. You could really make a difference in sort of knitting a golf course into the fabric of a community as opposed to being just looked at as a golf course or a place for golfers to go. And while this may sound like a little pitch for Touchstone tonight, that's not right why we're here. There are many, we're the 10th largest company in the country. There are many companies bigger than us and smaller than us that execute on the exact same strategies. So there's a lot of resources and help from the golf industry out there for you to consider their expertise to advise you or advise the citizens if they intend to organize for purposes of the PID to assist in better evaluating the risk and circumstances associated with taking on a golf course property in some form. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions. And
Mr. Edwards.
So Doug, Troy, what kind of if this is the same thing that we're seeing at Texas National, in 6 months, if this thing goes unmowed or barely mowed, what are we looking at?
So,
what are the pros, the cons?
So, Councilman, Texas National is a horror story, and you saw pictures, I guess, last week. Not a terribly densely populated area like this is in Schertz. The better comparison, if you really want to know what's going to happen, is Atascocita Golf Club in Houston, Texas. And I'm not saying this to be funny, but just so you can access the article, if you want to Google it, it would be the words Atascocita Golf and Coyote, and it'll bring up the article that was written after the decision was made to go ahead and abandon the golf course. That particular golf course became, we attended meetings similar to this. That particular golf course became not only a health hazard for pets and humans alike relative to wildlife, it became a pretty serious problem with dumping of all natures. So that'll be something for law enforcement to keep in mind if in fact the course goes back to nature.
And I did read that there were some things here that you put in this particular packet about the competition, who was in the area. The closest competitor is Olympia Hills, and then Joint Base Randolph, and then of course Landa Park. How does Northcliffe stack up against those particular courses from your estimation of what level of course is it?
So maintained at the level that the course was at when it was doing, I believe, 45,000 rounds of golf, I would say it's the superior property among those four for a couple of reasons, one of which, not the least of which, is an excellent practice range facility in terms of that potential. But given just the sheer humanity that surrounds the golf course now versus what surrounded it 5 or even 10 years ago, we would think the potential for minimum break-even operation and sufficient profit to reinvest in maintaining the course is feasible. Now, we don't do feasibility studies. The National Golf Foundation does, and does a pretty good job at it. So they're another resource that we could introduce if either the citizens or the city or some other group wanted to get a better understanding of what the feasibility was. The statistics that the National Golf Foundation produce creates a framework both demographically and in terms of supply and demand to be able to determine the potential success of the golf course.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that. Thank you, though.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Shulman? Council comments, questions? Mr. Larson?
I guess I don't know that there's an answer to this, but I guess one of the questions we'd have to answer is how long do we have before it's too late to have a level 1, level 2, or level 3 maintenance? I think, I mean, there's a lot to consider here. I guess somebody asked, hey, can you tell us where you stand? And I think it's only a reasonable request. I'm keeping an open mind about the opportunity for a public improvement district, but I'm really trying to get my mind around what is it going to cost? And that may sound like a terrible question to ask for people who are talking about something that they love so dearly, but it's just a practical one we have to ask. And I know we were going to talk about, they mentioned some of the water plant, the plant that's handling the water up there now with GBRA, and people have talked about going to other government entities to ask for help. I think one of the examples of how finite resources in government are is GBR does give a very prescient example, because they were just at Guadalupe County asking for money because of the failed dam at Dunlip Lake, and they're looking at a cost to rebuild that lake of around $15 to $20 million. And what was once lakefront property is now mudfront property, and that $20 million price tag is proving to be a major challenge for them. I think they're petitioning to try to get some funding from the state. I don't know how likely that is. Maybe because some people haven't just lost their lakefront property, but they can't even flush their toilets because they don't have water. They may have a shot at that, but even that's going to be a major challenge. And when I look at the water treatment, and I look at the maintaining, the rehabilitation, the marketing, the management, $20 million feels like it's going to be on the lower end of the cost to do something here. And so I think in terms of the city getting overly aggressively involved early on, I'm not there other than supporting the citizens as they try to use the empowerment that the state has given them for a public improvement district. I think if we can determine all of the challenges to how much the land costs, how much the maintenance costs, how much the rehabilitation costs, how much management costs, how much marketing costs, how much rehabilitating the water plant costs, and we can get that figure, and you can go to your neighbors and get enough of them to say, yeah, I'll pay $80 a month for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, just to have the course continue to be in existence. That would be a pretty loud voice. It's certainly not one that I would ignore. But until more information comes out that says my estimate is far off, I have to say that it looks like a major challenge. I think for the city getting involved, I think there's some conversation to be had related to, okay, golf courses is the best case scenario, and then the worst case scenario is just this jungle of coyotes. I don't think the worst case scenario is acceptable either. So I think while the citizens fight to put together the PID and get their neighbors to say, hey, yeah, I'm willing to invest that money over a long period of time, we also need to be having the conversation about, okay, what, in terms of just a financial reality standpoint, if that doesn't happen, what can we do to minimize the damage? And I think those are conversations that we probably have to have at least relatively quickly, because and maybe an expert would prove me wrong, but from what I've seen, the opportunity, the options that we have diminish rapidly with time. The costs skyrocket for any of it. And that's, when we sit here, dollars and cents, there's finite resources. As a city, we don't have the funds. I don't think that the county didn't even have much to say in terms of funds related to Dunlap Lake, and for GBRA, a government entity, they've got seven more of those all ready to fail. And so I think so I guess to summarize, as we have this conversation, I fully support a citizen initiative to go to their neighbors and make the case for a PID, and if they can come to the city council with enough people who say, you know what, I'm willing to make that investment, I'm willing to pay, and I don't know, even at $80 a month, $90 a month, that's if you can get 1,500, 2,000 homes involved. I don't know that you're going to be able to get that many homes involved. But if the citizens are willing to make that investment within that district, I'm not going to ignore that. But otherwise, looking at it from a perspective of somebody who's tasked with being a steward of the resources that are already incredibly limited for the city of Schertz, it's just not there for the city to take over this process or the golf course. For me, I think it would put us a financial weight around our neck that couldn't be sustained. And if even the best case scenario were to take place for 5-10 years, if there was any turn in the market, any turn in the situation, and the city has this weight around its neck, it could be disastrous for 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road. And that's too much of a risk to take, in my view. So I know that's not what anyone here wants to hear, but I think it's only fair that I tell you where I'm at. I'm doing my best to keep an open mind, especially as it relates to a citizen-initiated PID, but the information that we're getting and that I think you all have heard as well is this is a pretty steep hill to climb.
Others, counsel? Mr. Davis?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to go on record right now. I mean, I certainly understand the concern from the residents of that area up there. I think one of the best things I heard tonight was the fact that we need to look at all options. A PID is certainly an option. Perhaps there are others out there, and I just don't know. And the concern that I have right now, and I can't commit one way or the other, is simply because of the fact that we just don't have the data. The last analysis that was done with regards to the golf course was 2011. And so far, I haven't even heard the number one question in my mind getting answered. Can we even buy the golf course? I mean, the city doesn't own it. The residents of Northcliffe don't own it. Some guy owns it. So unless he's willing to sell it, I don't even know a way forward if we can't even buy the property to start with. So to me, I'm like Councilman Larson, I'm open to anything. I'm a big advocate for open space. I'm a big advocate for parks. As was mentioned earlier, I'm very familiar with the Parks Master Plan. I wrote it. And there's a couple reasons why the golf course didn't rate out high. It's because of the fact that the city really had a golf course. Northcliffe, when we wrote the master plan, was operating. And so was Olympia Hills, and so was Randolph. So the reality of it is people probably don't think that we needed to add another golf course because we had golf courses. That data may be a little bit skewed right now, and a little bit might be changed. But I think what we need to answer first is there anything we can do? Can we even buy the property? And then if so, what are the other associated costs with it? Is it a citywide concern? No. Is it popular across the city? Probably not. How many people sitting in the audience out here go swimming in the natatorium? I didn't see any hands go up. But the city built an indoor swimming pool. One or two. But we built a indoor natatorium as part of our rec program, and that benefited the city residents in general, and it benefited our school athletic programs. So I can certainly see the tie between a golf course and the residents, and a natatorium and the residents, and a lot of the other things we do. Not every recreation program we have generates a profit. Some do, some can, some don't. And there's a lot of options on there. But I think before we do anything, we just need to get some more facts. We need to, number one, find out if this course is even available to be bought, and if so, what that cost would be. And then we'd have to step through all the other costs, what it would cost to maintain it, what it would cost to operate it. And lately, that water issue up there is an issue that's going to have to be addressed. We've been using effluent to water the course, as I understand it. If you read the report from 2011, it said that they were losing about 200,000 gallons of water a year to water the course, and that report said it's not enough. It's $1 million gallons of water. So that's another cost that, without the facts and the figures, it's hard to make a decision one way or the other. I certainly have an open mind. I think it's something we need to talk about, but we need to get the facts first before we can go down any path.
Mr. Edwards?
You know, how many people in here are retired? Raise your hand. If you live on that golf course and you retire. Any of you retired military? Keep your hand raised. You know, thank you for your service as well. You know, you served your country, you bought a home, you expect to be taken care of. Guys, I'm all about the data. So to the point of, you know, how much is it going to cost us to run this golf course? So there's going to have to be a pro forma done somewhere to show you years down the road what it's going to cost you, even if you factor in inflation and everything else and all the particulars. You take in all those points, and you have to actually come up with a number. So to the point that your wife was making, I'm assuming that's your wife, to the point that your wife was making, yes, you have to come up with a pro forma. Guys, this is an emotional issue. It is extremely emotional. Your property value is being affected, whether you disagree or agree whether it's going down or not, but your property value is being affected. So yes, this is definitely an emotional issue. But I think Councilman Davis, Councilman Larson, we're all on the same page here. We're saying that we need to see some hard data. Let's get all the people together. I believe that Schertz is a can-do community. I really do. I don't think that we can't accomplish this. I really do believe that if we just have the spirit going forward, saying that we're going to work together to get this PID going and to have a public-private partnership go forward, I think we could work something out. Now, is it going to be the best solution? I'm not going to tell you that you're going to have an 18-hole golf course. I'm not going to tell you you're going to have a 9-hole golf course. But if we don't put the data together to find out, how are we going to know? But in the meantime, the course has to maintain some usability as a course. I don't think that we can just let it grow over. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think that we'd be looking at bigger issues going forward if we did that. So I think that we need to determine what kind of the effort that you guys put out for that PID is going to determine your outcome. I would tell you all, don't just think, oh, we're going to get lucky with 1 vote from this councilman, 3 votes from this councilman. Go out and create your own luck. Show us how bad you want it. I know that that's kind of cliche, but it's really true. Show us how bad you want this, because we can do only so much with the amount of funding that we have for the citizens. We can only do so much. Do we care? Yes. No one on this dais is sitting up here because they don't care. They all care tremendously about you, about your families, about this community all together. But show us how bad you guys want to do this. So you're going to have to pick a leader, form your PID, and go forward. But in the meantime, let us partner with you in some form or fashion to help you go forward with that idea.
Mayor Pro Tem Hayward.
It is an emotional issue, and I feel your frustration and pain. And Mayor, I know we talked about possibly forming a committee to help them with the PID. I would be willing to volunteer my services to do that, to see if we can't find some solution one way or the other, whether it is to keep it open or it's not feasible to keep it open, so that we can say that we've done all that we can do to see where it goes.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Brown?
Yeah, and to be very, very, very clear on this, your city council, is not going to say yes or no to anything right away, but you, the citizens, have got to form your committees, whatever, and get working on this yesterday to bring that data back to us so we can make these decisions. Please, it's not that we don't support the quality of life of every individual out there, but we can't just, as has been said before, we can't just go out and buy a golf course. All right? And because it is private property, it is not ours to make decisions on. All right? We're going to need your input on how to go about that process. And I think the mayor has done a wonderful job of opening that door, opening that process, and making some preparations for the golf course closure. He's already talked to our staff. He heard what they're looking at already. So I think that's very forward-thinking and forward-looking. I think you know that you have the support of the city going forward. And again, I challenge you, you can't wait on this. You've got to get going.
Dr. Scagliola?
You know, one of the reasons I got on the city council was because I didn't feel the residents had much of a voice. You know, they got this old thing that you can't fight City Hall. It's always been my position. Never give the residents a reason to believe that they need to fight City Hall. You know, this is a partnership that we have here. And we actually have a lot of public-private partnerships out there. There's a recreation center in the YMCA. We have our soccer with Gracia in the YMCA. Baseball, BVYA. A lot of recreational opportunities. The way I see it, golf is just another recreational opportunity. I live out in Northcliffe. You know, if you're going to start something, you might as well lead with your biases. Yeah, I'm a little bit biased. The only thing is, I don't play golf. I was in the Air Force, and I still, as an officer, never learned how to play golf. But I ran a lot of golf tournaments. So I know how important golf is to a lot of people. Some people use it as a pastime. Some use it as exercise. Some use it to vent their frustrations, and some get frustrated in the process. Whatever the reason, hey, it's all good. I know how important that golf course is to the community. And we call it Northcliffe. Well, the fact of the matter is, there's a whole bunch of communities, subdivisions, surrounding that golf course. You got Northcliffe, Northcliffe Estates. There's actually two Northcliffes. You got Northcliffe Estates, and then Fairway Ridge, Fairways at Scenic Hills. You got Scenic Hills. You got Fairhaven. How far do you want to stretch it? You know, going out to Homestead, you know, Whisper Meadows, Riata, Belmont Park, all those other communities out there. So there's a lot of people that are adjacent to the golf course. It's not just Northcliffe. I like the idea of a public-private partnership. I said that. And I'm more than willing to sit down with any committee that's being formed. I know for a fact that a lot of times HOAs can't do it all themselves. They just don't have the resources available to them. I was a president of the HOA for a while. And for the presidents out there, thank you. Thank you very much. It's a thankless job. I know that firsthand. But it can be a very rewarding job as well. This isn't my first time talking about the golf course, going back a number of years. It was a hot topic, and it continues to be a hot topic. And when it first came out, hey, problems started. I'd like to keep the golf course private because I didn't view that the city had the resources to manage a golf course. As time goes by, however, I'm beginning to change my mind. But I'm an analyst. Sometimes it doesn't matter what I feel. What matters more is what the numbers are telling you. Number one priority, the way I see it, is we have to determine who owns the golf course and then determine whether or not they want to sell. The city has no authority to tell an individual they must sell their property. But sometimes influence is more important than authority. And I would like to see the city put its influence behind this effort. Just don't know where to start. That's the key. Like I said, number one priority, though, is to find out who owns the golf course, whether they will sell it, and for how much. I'm an analyst. I do the back of the envelope really, really well. I got a dollar value in my head that is scary when all is said and done about what it would take. But then again, a few years back, we went out to Seguin and said, hey, we think there might be a shortage of water in the next couple of years. So they put together a little local government corporation, built a 42-mile pipeline to the tune of about $1 million a mile. And people thought they were crazy for doing that. Yeah, they were crazy smart for having done it. And we're doing it again, by the way. Is this crazy smart to buy the golf course? Or to have the residents buy the golf course? Or just crazy? We need to sit down and figure it out. And I'm willing to sit down with you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Good. Mr. Gutierrez.
As most of you have heard, we all share your concerns. We understand what you're going through as property owners and the surrounding area there. But there is too many variables that we cannot make decisions based on the information that we don't have. We have a responsibility to the city, not just to a portion of the sector. It's the entire city. You know, we don't know how many houses are being affected, or like Mr. Councilman Scagliola and Mr. Davis said, can we even buy the property? You know, the costs, the numbers were thrown out there, minimum of $15 to $20 million that we're looking at. So it's very difficult to make decisions without having numbers to justify actions. I too am in favor of doing the PID, and I applaud you if you want to continue this. It is a fight, but is it worth it to you? That's what you have to determine as citizens and residents of North Cliff. Is it worth your effort? Is it worth your fight? Well, some of you are here, and you have shown that passion. I just wish that you continue that, because this council will support you. That's all I have to say.
Okay. All right, a couple thoughts. First one is this. If you want to see a city manager sweat, and I guarantee you that he is, or an assistant city manager sweat, and talk about this city buying that golf course in the absence of a PID. Our total annual budget, all funds, is around $88 million. We want to talk about spending 10% of that on this project. It will make everyone, and the finance department won't sweat. They'll pass out. 1 cent additional tax on our rate will yield about $370,000. 5 cents, $1.6 million. We need more like 10. It's not 15 or 20, by the way. It's probably more like 10 over 10 years or somewhere in that vicinity. And that's still going to be sub-USGA. only person in the room that sat on the dais longer than I have is Councilman Greenwald back there in the back. We've been talking about this since, how long, Ken? That long is what he said. Before I was ever elected. It's not going to be an easy answer. City does not have the dollars to write a check and buy that golf course and put into place its rehabilitation in the absence of a PID or some other funding mechanism. We don't. So what you didn't hear on the dais this evening is any individual council member saying, I'm not willing to listen. I think you should take heart in that. That means the door is not closed. What I think you did hear was, if it's something that you really want, you're going to have to do some work for us and with us to explore the possibilities. I don't see it happening in the absence of a public improvement district that raises the bulk of the funds to purchase, rehabilitate, maintain, and operate that facility, inclusive of providing irrigation. And that is no small task, given that that water treatment facility is at end of life. That's millions of dollars for that portion alone. Like 3.6. Are there other potential alternatives for water? There are. But we'll have to discuss those. Now, you've heard at least 2 or 3 council members up here say they're willing to meet with you and help you as you form this group to explore the possibility of bringing forth a public improvement district. I think you heard Mr. Roberts say he has information about how to contact the ownership group to find out what their willingness and their price. We have another couple of gentlemen here that have come down from Austin and the Dallas area, correct, that you should grab their cards and get them involved in the process. If there's some people that you feel like you might want to work with, at least on a short-term basis, to utilize their expertise. I think it's an interesting concept to go to the counties and ask if they would have any interest in being part of an overall long-term effort. We can certainly help make introductions to the county commissioners and the county judges in those 2 counties. Please understand, staff they have no extra time. We are short-staffed. I can't take this man and that man and those ladies off the work that they're doing right now to drive this with the speed that it needs to be driven, which is why I believe you've heard these council members say, we need you to help drive this. And frankly, that means in the driver's seat. We'll help. We'll provide information. We'll work to make introductions. We'll try to knock down walls where we can. As I said last week, we will start the dialogue, which we have done, and we will help knock down walls where we can do so. But this is no small task. This is nothing where the city's going to come in with a checkbook and save the day. It's going to be work. That said, we can put together a public improvement district that will bear the bulk of the expense of getting this done. I suspect you may have a unanimous vote to join you in doing so. Again, it will not be simple. It will not be easy. It will be work. Good news in my mind is none of the 7 members that have a vote, by the way, I don't have a vote unless somebody goes to the bathroom and I have a 3-3. No one has said no. That's a fair starting point. Council, any other comments, questions?
Real quick, just wanted to thank Councilman Edwards for reaching out to the Touchstone folks. Thanks again.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming down. I suspect that as we get closer to adjourning, some of the folks here may want to visit with you, so don't run off too quickly. All right. Anything else for council with regard to that discussion? My phone number, by the way, is 210. It's easy to find. But Dave has it. You can give it to him. It's 210-452-8003. I got a good feeling that the rest of the council will tell you how to get in touch with them as well. If we can help, we can't run this ourselves. We don't have the manpower. We can help. Call us. Please don't call at 4 in the morning. I'm trying to sleep. I got to go to work in the morning because I keep it on my nightstand in case this guy calls. But let's continue the dialogue. Let's begin the work, and let's see what's possible together. All right, I'm going to move on to the next item. I'll tell you what. Let's do this. Also a little bit unusual, I'm going to ask for a 10-minute recess for council so that council members that want to come out and visit with you or say anything, give you their contact information, can do so. We're going to recess for 10 minutes. I show 8:39. We're back in a regular open session. Next item that we have on the agenda, announcements by the city manager. Do you have anything you'd like to say, Dr. Brown, after this evening? No announcements. Fair enough. Next, request by the mayor and council members that items be placed on a future city council agenda. Anything that we need to add that we don't currently have purview to? It doesn't look like I have any takers.
Mayor?
Mr. Gutierrez.
Yes. The safety and well-being of the people during and after an emergency depends on how well our community is prepared and how the city handles a crisis should it happen. And the reason I bring this up is the number of tornadoes that hit the Dallas and Oklahoma area. What I like is maybe we can focus on a presentation and emphasize a checklist for our residents to prepare for a disaster, because our resources are going to be they're going to be out there where they're actually needed after the disaster occurs. And I think if we can provide something for them, I would appreciate that.
Dr. Brown's saying no problem there. So not necessarily an agenda item, but rather can staff put something together? So you do want a presentation. So let's do this. And then let's have, for the newest members who may not have had an opportunity to see it, let's have an agenda item where we just get a short briefing on our Emergency Operations Center, our emergency operations plan that we already have written, scripted, and put in place, and then some commentary on preparedness. That doable?
That's doable. We can do it.
Good. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, next up, announcements by the mayor and council members. We'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Hayward.
Okay, Mayor, this was a very light week for me.
Yeah.
I went to an EDC workshop at ACOG where they had some state and federal representatives to come out and talk to us a little bit about economic development and what their agencies could give for us. Some of the things they offered wouldn't apply to our city, but it was worth going to see what they offered. I took part in a city workshop, website focus group, to find out how we can go about making the website more user-friendly for all ages, especially those that are up in, our seniors, to get them more geared toward using the website. And then the last thing I did was I did an SSLGC tour, and it was amazing to see the start, all the apparatuses that are used in getting us our water. It is phenomenal, and to know that it's like about 20 years old, it's just mind-boggling. So that is all.
Very good. Mr. Davis?
Nothing, sir.
Mr. Gutierrez?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I also went to the economic development presentation sponsored by ACOG. Great presentation, and toured the SSLGC facility. Thanks to Robin, and Torino for their presentation. That's all.
Mr. Larson?
Nothing.
Mr. Evans? Dr. Scagliola?
Nothing tonight, sir.
Mr. Brown?
I also attended the SSLGC tour. Great information, as was said earlier tonight. Great vision from our folks in the 90s there. And also the staff invited me to one of their development process meetings last week, and went over some, how their planning process works, very interesting, and answered a lot of my questions.
Great. I don't have anything to add this evening. If there's nothing else from staff or from council, then we stand adjourned.